Hello, everybody. I would just like to begin by wishing you all God's richest blessing at this difficult time. And I do hope and pray that you are all keeping well physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Those of you who know me quite well will recognize that one of the impacts of this period of lockdown for me personally is that I am in serious need of a haircut. During this period between Easter and the Ascension of Jesus, we as a church are looking at some of the appearances that Jesus made to different people. And today we are considering the Gospel of John, chapter 20 and verses 24 to 31, which I will now read to you. Now Thomas, called Didymus, one of the 12, was not with the disciples when Jesus came. When the other disciples told him that they had seen the Lord, he declared, "Unless I see the nail marks in his hands and put my finger where the nails were and put my hand into his side, I will not believe it." A week later, his disciples were in the house again, and Thomas was with them. Though the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here, see my hands. Reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe." Thomas answered, "My Lord and my God." Then Jesus told him, "Because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed." Jesus did many other miraculous signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not recorded in this book. But these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. Like many others, one of the things that I am profoundly grateful for at this time is modern technology. The technology that enables us not only to be able to see, to hear our loved ones, but also to see them. Now, we have 3 daughters. One of them lives just over 2 miles away from us. One of them lives a little over 40 miles away. And the third one lives over 200 miles away from us. Now, despite these varying distances, one of the good things is that we can see and hear all of them at the same time, and we can be in touch with them very easily. And it is a great joy for us to be able to see and to hear our grandchildren as they demonstrate such things as their latest cooking exploits, or they're drawing or bouncing up and down on the trampoline, playing in the garden, whatever it is, we are able to see them. However, despite our appreciation of this modern technology, we actually want a bit more than that. It's not enough for us simply to be able to see them and hear them on a screen. We actually want to be physically present with them. Next week, our grandson is going to be celebrating his 3rd birthday, and we're really looking forward to seeing him open his presents, watching him blow the candles out on his birthday cake, and see him listening to us singing happy birthday, probably completely out of tune. However, although that's going to be a lot of fun, what we really want to do is to be able to give him a cuddle, to hold him in our arms and wish him happy birthday by being physically present with him. This period of lockdown has enabled me, I think, to gain a deeper appreciation for what it was that Thomas wanted. You see, for Thomas, it wasn't enough to be told that Jesus was alive, to hear inspiring stories of other people's experience of Jesus, or even maybe to think that it was just possible that these stories were true. What Thomas actually wanted was to experience the physical presence of Jesus, to be able to see him and to touch him and to be physically with him. Now, of course, as we know from the reading, Jesus granted Thomas's request, and he allowed Thomas to see the scars in his hands and in his side, and to reach out and to touch them. And it was then, and only then, that Thomas believed. And after that experience that Thomas had, we have what I think are some of the most amazing, wonderful and inspiring words that we could ever listen to. And they are the words of Jesus in John chapter 20, verse 29, where Jesus says, "Because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed." Now, I appreciate how fortunate I am to be able to see and to hear my loved ones. But as I've intimated, I actually want more than that. So in what ways can it be a blessing not to be able to see Jesus at all? And as I've reflected on this, my thoughts have a number of thoughts have come into my mind. And the first is that the visible presence of a loved one is limited. The invisible presence of Jesus is unlimited. Now, we're really looking forward to driving 200 miles in order to go and see Helen, our daughter, who lives down near Bournemouth. However, we know that, enjoyable though that is going to most certainly be, it will come to an end and we will return home. To be physically present with somebody is limited. It's limited by space and time. The invisible presence of Jesus is not limited in this way. Because he is invisible, he's able to be with us wherever we are, whatever it is that we are doing, however we feel. And not only is he able to be present with us here in this place, but he's also able to be present with people on the other side of the world. And such universal availability would be impossible, wouldn't it, if Jesus was still just physically present on the earth. We are blessed because Jesus is always with us. Even when we are physically alone, we are not alone. The second way in which we are blessed is that the physical presence of a loved one is external, and the invisible presence of Jesus is internal. Some years ago I read a book entitled Pain, The Gift That Nobody Wants. It was written by a man who had spent his life working with people who were suffering from leprosy, people whose condition meant that they suffered severe physical injury because they did not feel pain. And one of the points that he makes in this book is that it is impossible for us to experience the pain of another person. We may sympathize with their pain. We may even seek to alleviate it, but we cannot feel it. It is their pain. And I think a similar kind of thing is true with other sorts of pain. As physical people, it is impossible for us to get deeply inside of another person, to enter into their heart, to feel ourselves, their deepest emotions, to experience what it is that they are feeling and fearing. We are limited by our very physical existence. Now, the wonderful thing about Jesus is that he is able to get deep inside of us. Being invisible and spiritual, he can enter into our deepest emotions. He can feel our fears and our joys, our longings, and he brings his love into those deepest places of our hearts and our lives. The inner strength and understanding that Jesus brings is indeed a very, very rich source of blessing. Now, the third way in which we are blessed is that the physical presence of Jesus would demand belief. his invisible presence, cause for loving trust. Now, you could, I guess, argue that Thomas didn't really have a choice. To see Jesus standing there in front of him, to be able to touch the scars in his hands and in his side, actually gave Thomas no choice. He could only say, "My Lord and my God," and express his faith. Now, in contrast, because we cannot see Jesus in that way, in a sense, we do have a choice. We can look at the amazing events of Easter and decide that it's all a load of nonsense. That's our choice. Or we can look at the same events and we can see wonderful truths. The fact that Jesus has defeated death, that he is alive and is able to be with us. Now, the point is that Jesus is not going to suddenly and miraculously stand in front of us, twist our arms behind our backs and tell us that we must believe in him. That is not his way. Because we cannot see Jesus, the choice is ours. And the blessing, of course, is ours when we do choose to trust him and to commit our lives to him. Now we, as you know, are living through a difficult time when many of the things that we normally rely on have been taken away from us. We are not able to enjoy the close fellowship of our friends at church. We cannot have the physical presence of our loved ones with us. We're not able to enjoy the joy and challenge of sport, and we're not even allowed to go on holiday. And these deprivations that we face, I think, make the words of Jesus even more special and wonderful to us. Here was a man, Thomas, who needed the physical presence of Jesus before he would believe. And yet Jesus then said, "Because you have seen me, you have believed." How blessed are those who have not seen me and yet have believed. And John then concludes this great passage with the words of John 20 and verse 31, where John writes, "These are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name." May we indeed know the blessing and the life that comes as we trust and believe in our invisible and yet very real Lord and Saviour.